Welcome to Focus on the Candidates. My name is Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is, oh boy,
Brandon Givens.
thank you so much, Brandon Givens. And Brandon is running for the state legislature in Virginia, and he's running on the Forward Party line. So, Brandon, tell us a little bit about yourself, why you decided to run, how you got involved in politics, and so forth.
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked that question. I lived outside of the country for quite some time, almost 10 years, and I came back and just saw how big of a mess things are. And I'm one of these people that's like, hey, be the change you want to see in this world. And I thought, we need intelligent, rational people in office. I at least think I'm an intelligent, rational person.
Mhm.
So I decided to run for office. It was really the tribalism that the tribalism has gotten too far, and we need to get away from that. We need bipartisan solutions. And I think most Americans, that's what they want. If you really sit them down, is they want our problems solved. They don't want people
Right.
yelling at each other.
hmm So you lived out of the country for 10 years. When you came back, you must have been quite shocked when you came back.
Well, it wasn't a complete shock because, I followed the news and everything, but there was a vibe. Like
Uh-huh.
you can read things, but when I got back, yeah, it was a weird vibe, like a tension that didn't really exist when I had left,
hmm
or at least in my memory.
So when you left the country, did you think you were leaving for good, or did you know you were coming back?
It was largely a plan to leave for good. Yes, it was largely. Um, I think our long-term plan was to get into the EU eventually,
hmm
and because our politics are along those lines, and we love the country, we love the Constitution, but there is one of the things you can vote with your feet, and I guess that's still an option,
hmm
but and I may very well go with that option, but along the lines of be the change you want to see in this world. It's a different story when it's like, everything's kind of okay, but I might be happier living somewhere else versus my home is on fire
Right.
and walking away from that is a little different. Actually, it's a lot different.
So what country did you live in?
Oh, I lived in a bunch. I was an international school teacher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is Kazakhstan, China, Benin, Slovakia.
So basically Eastern Europe.
Well, Slovakia was Eastern Europe. Kazakhstan is in Asia, or it's west of China,
hmm
Central Asia. Benin is in West Africa.
Okay. So when you left here, you had to get used to a different kinds of foods. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah. I really like Chinese food. Where I lived in Xi'an, it's really spicy, which I liked, but
hmm
it's so spicy when I come to visit. Uh, I couldn't get spicy food. I'd go to the Mexican restaurant or the Indian restaurant. I have to tell them like, no, 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 treat me like you would someone not from here,
Okay.
or
Okay.
because I'm used to this now.
So when you came back, you had to get used to American food all over again then, right?
Well, in a sense, I mean, it wasn't that hard. One of the things that does surprise me or getting used to American food is how the preservatives in it.
Mhm.
And if I anywhere else in the world, I mean Europe especially, you buy bread, got to eat it pretty quickly.
Hmm.
And here, if I buy some bread and it seems like it lasts forever.
Right.
And the same with fruit. You got to, eat your fruit pretty quickly. Uh, Here it seems to last a lot longer.
So how long after you were back did you decide, hey, I'm gonna jump into the arena?
Well, it was opportunistic in a sense. So Virginia has elections in these off years.
Right.
And so I was here, and I was not going to be in the state long enough to qualify for any of the primaries. So running as either a Democrat or Republican wasn't on the table. Not that I would necessarily want to, but it just wasn't going to be on the table anyway. And then I started looking into political movements and found out about the Forward Party. And
Hmm.
they were like, well, we're looking for candidates specifically in Virginia and New Jersey because those two states have these off-year elections.
Right. This is the year for New Jersey also.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so I contacted or I researched them first and thought, oh, well, these guys actually seem all right.
So when you looked into the Forward Party, were you happy with what you saw? In other words, do you think at some point they're gonna take off and be a viable third party?
I think it is a possibility because the plan is to be the other second party. And what that means, or part of what that means, is, for example, the district I'm in, the Republican is only going to get about 30% of the vote. I don't care if he's Muhammad Gandhi with a GOP sticker. He's only going to get 35% of the vote max. And districts I grew up in, well, one I came from when I lived in Georgia was the opposite. Like the Democrat was only going to get 35% of the vote.
Hmm.
Well, the Forward Party has a unique opportunity to be a sort of moderating force to say, hey, you know, uh, in the primary, it's usually going to be the more extreme candidate. So in this district. Of course, I honestly don't know enough about the Republican here, but the Republican Party right now is pretty far right. So
Hmm.
if I were a moderate Republican in this district, and it's like, well, I don't really want to vote for the Democrat, but I also don't really want to vote for the Republican.
Right.
And if I'm a moderate Democrat or um, just not really feeling this particular candidate, I could look at the independent. So I'm not, I call myself a moderate because I have opinions all over the place, but I'm like Bernie Sanders with a Southern accent. And so, in some ways, I'm probably to the left of the Democrat I'm running against.
Right.
But it would be in the Republicans' interest to support me because it was like tactical voting.
So when you decided to run and you weren't happy with the Republicans and Democrats and you saw the Forward Party, what steps did you take to have them endorse you?
Well, I had to contact them. I had to go through a vetting process. They had to interview me and go to a few of the meetings, or there were like online meetings. And yeah, it wasn't horribly difficult. It was just basically, we want to make sure that you're a sane human being, and background check my social media, make sure there wasn't anything too crazy in there. And they also wanted to make sure it was an office they would want someone running for because they're trying to avoid the spoiler effect as well. So they're trying to be a little strategic there. And that's a tough one because you also don't want this assumption that the two parties have that they have a right to be the two parties.
Hmm.
But it's a tightrope to walk for the Forward Party. But nonetheless, they weren't afraid to endorse me in this race. And their thing is basically you need to want to uphold the Constitution and be willing to be bipartisan. that
Mhm.
you're looking for solutions, basically not be corrupt. You take a pledge not to like become a lobbyist, like for so many years after
Mhm.
you're out of office. So trying to get rid of some of the corruption and just, but no one has leaned on me, even though most of the forwardists I've met, I would say are probably Republican, um, like kind
Okay.
of New England Republican types. Uh, and of course, I'm like, Medicare for all, but no one has leaned on me at all. They're just, as long as you're willing to talk, as long as you're willing to listen, that's what.
Well, Andrew Yang, who's one of the founders of the Forward Party, he's
Yeah,
a Democrat. He ran for president as a Democrat.
yeah. Well, I like his, the UBI thing, which, that's a fun topic.
So, are there a lot of other people that you've encountered in your state who are running on the Forward Party line?
We do have a couple of people. There's, was it Christian Farr? I need to look. I've forgotten. I'm drawing a blank on her name, but she's in a Republican district, so it's kind of interesting. We've got like a flop dynamic. I think she's a retired Air Force engineer to
Okay.
memory, and so that's another candidate. And then we have some local candidates like Mr. Eves for the school board
Hmm. Now, do
in
you
Arlington.
have to adhere to a certain political criteria if you want to be endorsed by the Forward Party?
No, they don't have a set platform. The closest thing to a platform would be voter access. They mostly seem to support ranked choice voting.
Hmm.
So you have to be about expanding ballot access to other parties and other ideas, ending gerrymandering.
Hmm.
That's about the only thing where they're kind of like, you probably need to agree with this, otherwise, what are you doing here?
Gerrymandering is going to be a big issue for 2026, I believe.
Yeah, I'm worried it'll be the downfall of the republic. Uh,
I really think it'll be that bad.
well, if we look at what happened with the American Civil War, when you had this sort of, oh, well, we have slave states and free states, and
Right.
then it was, oh, once we can't have the balance of power anymore, we got to break apart. And we have kind of had a balance between blue and red states, and it swings a little bit, but it's mostly been about 50-50. But with the
Hmm.
whole gerrymandering thing, well, one option is it will actually just solidify that as just a fact. Like these are red states and these are blue states. And then at that point, we're not really a representative democracy. We have one party states within a federation in a really weird union. And the other option is more of one of the other types of states become gerrymandered, like irreplaceably. Like, oh, we've got 27 states that are now always going to be red or always going to be blue, and so that party will always control the Senate. And I don't think the country would survive that if it became that. I just
So I'm going to ask you a loaded question. If you don't think the nation is going to survive this,
I didn't say it is happening. I said if it did happen,
okay, if it did happen, what do you foresee?
a disillusion.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would think some of the states would just start they would go their own way.
I mean, they're part of the union, so you're thinking they would just succeed like they did during the Civil War?
I kind of think that, yeah. I think they would
Uh,
try. They hopefully, if it were to happen, it would be done in the most constitutional way possible, which would be to have constitutional amendments to say, hey, let's have a constitutional amendment. Canada has a process for a province to leave leave the Canadian, I guess I can't remember if it's technically a confederation, but the Canadian Union, so to speak. So I think it's a 60% vote in the province, and then they can become their own thing.
Right.
So that would be the direction I would hope it would go if it has to go that way.
Mhm.
Is say, hey, let's have a constitutional amendment to clarify how a state could leave. Or they would just start ignoring federal law. That would be the other thing, is you could just have the states that just say, well, we no longer recognize the legitimacy of the federal government. So we're just not going to, we're going to, well, it goes back to South Carolina before the war. We're going to nullify federal law. And then it just depends on, well, what's the federal government going to do? And if they decide they're going to enforce the law, well, then you have shooting. And if they say, maybe we'll just let that one go, the country stays together on paper, but by de jure, it exists as one country, but de facto, it's two separate nations, but people share the same passport, which
And
might not be the worst thing, you know?
so you think that would you classify it as a very dangerous time for this country or an evolution? Do you think that over the past maybe few decades, maybe even more than that, our country has evolved into where we are right now?
Well, what's happened, Aristotle talked about this. This is the cycle where you start out with a polity like uh, people. A democracy needs people who consider the needs of others as well as their own. It's not just my needs; it's what's good for the community. And then over time, it becomes about, well, I'm going to vote my own interest, even if those
Uh-huh.
interests knock someone out of the way. And then eventually wealth begins to accumulate, and those in power buy the control. And that's oligarchy. And that's what we have now. We have an oligarchy. Our elections, like, they're fundraising campaigns. Who has the most money most of the time wins. And you can also buy the court systems. It's not like you can go and literally pay a judge off, but you can keep things tied up in court. If you've got lawyers, you have $10 million of wealth, you've got enough money to have what Peter Thiel calls access to the court system. And you
Mhm.
can make sure that anyone that annoys you is sued into silence. And, if you commit a crime or do something, you can keep it in court forever and ever and ever. And so, I mean, that's just the world we live in. We're living in what Aristotle said happens at the end of a democracy as it evolves into oligarchy.
Mhm.
And so we're, as a people, have to decide what we're going to do about that. And I'm not optimistic. I don't really think we're going to get out of it, but I want us to, and I think I need to try. Yeah.
So you think that gerrymandering is just one um you know manifestation of what might happen? Or do you think that's the sole issue?
It's one. I mean, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of problems like the wealth accumulation to that very top. I mean, even look at like since COVID, there was this huge transfer of wealth to the elite.
Right.
And we can't even begin to talk about taxing them because that's just off limits. And the taxes we've had introduced recently that are increasing revenue, tariffs, what's the regular, that's increasing the cost of products. We talk
Right.
about a regressive tax. And maybe it has some benefits, maybe it has benefits of making, more things being made in the US. It doesn't seem to be working that way, but that's a theory that that's what would happen. But nonetheless, and it's like I will pay more for a product if it brings more jobs to the US that have a nice salary. If that's what's happening, all right.
Mhm.
But I don't think that's what's happening. Essentially, we're just paying more in taxes. It's basically a sales tax. I mean, that's really what a tariff is. It's
Okay.
just another sales tax.
Okay.
And
So,
as long as you don't spend your money, you're a multi-millionaire and you can just put your stuff in stocks. No sales tax on stocks. So there you go. You keep your wealth.
mhm. So, gee, I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. It's getting late in the afternoon for me.
Oh,
Um, so are there uh, have there been any forward party members who have been elected?
there are people in, yeah, I think local offices, or at least
Okay.
forward endorsed, and one Utah Republican switched to the Forward Party. So there are Forwardists in office.
Okay.
Um,
How
I don't,
many did you say?
I don't remember how many, but I know of at least one state delegate in Utah that's a
Okay.
member of the Forward Party.
Okay. But I mean, I a handful of people in a new party isn't going to all of a sudden change things. What do you think?
I mean, well, again, you have to try, and this is testing the water. We'll see. I mean, in some ways, my campaign is like testing the temperature. If I outperform expectations, it means people are really angry. Most Americans, it's like 68% of Americans say they want a third party. 68% of something like over 60% of Americans call themselves independent. But when they get in the ballot box, they don't necessarily vote that way. Maybe they will because it's reached a point where they're like, hey, we got to do something. We got to try something different. And then next year, we have midterms.
Right?
And, we're trying to tap into that frustration of like, we've got to do things differently. We have to get away from this just bipartisan gridlock and just childish games and just the power games. I mean, what politics has been, and power by definition is getting people to do what you want them to do.
Hmm.
And but when to have a proper like a democracy that functions, you're not supposed to force your will, which is like an irony because it's like, oh, well, that you got to force your will to get in power. So a
Right.
lot of the political parties, how they view their success is whether we, lied, cheat, stole, bent the rules, whatever we did we get our way?
Hmm.
And the democracy can't function that way. I would rather lose like democratically than have my way. I mean, I think that if I were just absolute dictator of the world, things would be so much better and great. But I'm not going to force my will on anyone because, hey, what if I happen to be wrong? You know, and they,
But we're all human, and every day we make maybe small mistakes, sometimes bigger mistakes. And mistakes is only part of living, wouldn't you say?
yeah. We all make mistakes. That's fine, and understandable. But I'm talking about people undermining the democratic processes or looking for loopholes just to get their way. The example I would use would be the Supreme Court. Was it Merrick Garland when um, Obama had it was like the last 8 months or 12 months of his presidency, and he was going to be able to appoint someone, and the Republicans were like, no, 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 no. It's too close to the election. It's too close to the election. We
Right,
can't do that. But then when the tide was turned, oh, no, 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 we get to do it because we have that right.
right.
And that's part of the problem is like, well, they didn't break the law, they didn't break the rules. But one of the ways you know someone's in the wrong, especially a business person, is if they tell you, I didn't do anything illegal
Hmm.
or I didn't break the rules. If
Hmm.
they had to say that, you
Hmm.
know they're in the wrong. And and those are the sorts of games I'm talking about. And then now we have a situation right now. Was it president? I was just listening to it. Um, involving President Trump. So you have these people that were fired by the federal government, and there's a legal process for them to sue. But the appellate part, it's like an office of merit or something, has to have three judges. And so the president just fired one of them and or removed. So then, since there are two, these cases can't be heard. So there will be no justice. The cases simply will not be heard
Mhm,
because can't hear the cases unless you have three judges.
mhm.
So it wasn't what the president did was not illegal. He followed the letter of the law. The letter of the law says people have the right to appeal these cases,
Mhm.
but it must be appealed. It must go to its highest level, and that appeals court must have three judges. I just fired one of the judges, so there we go. Now the
So
problem.
when you go out and campaign and you tell people that you're campaigning and running with the forward party, what is their reaction?
They seem kind of happy about it or excited, and then they quite often tell me how they're really frustrated with the two-party system.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I get a lot of like positive feedback from people. Now, whether what they're going to do in the ballot box, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Now, do you have to get signatures for a petition to qualify for the ballot?
Yeah. I had to go door to door, and I can't remember how many it was, like 180 or something.
Oh,
And that's what I did over spring break, is I just knocked on doors and, hey, I'm a school teacher trying to run for office. I need signatures. Will you help me out?
so 180 for a
House of Delegates.
state.
Yeah.
That's not a lot,
Yeah, I didn't find it unreasonable. Um,
right?
yeah, I think in Georgia, it was something crazy, like a small candidate, like over 1,000 or
Mhm.
so. I think like 10% of the voters or something. It was something that, like, if you are a small candidate, there's just no way. You have to have a machinery behind you. Um,
Now, I live in New York, and the amount of signatures people in New York need to get on the ballot is it's a nightmare
oh,
because Cuomo, like if you're running statewide, it used to be people would have to get 15,000.
yeah.
So Cuomo wanted to eliminate all third parties. So he upped the number to 45,000, and you had to get that in a month.
Ah, yeah.
Yep, yep.
Um, and that's the thing. It's yeah, those are anti-democratic, and it's wrong.
Hmm.
It's wrong, and it's part of the problem we have. And we need solutions like ranked choice voting. Gerrymandering is going to be really hard to get rid of, because even like my district, I don't believe it's gerrymandered. It's just this whole region has a lot of left-leaning people, but it's still unfair to that 30% that they don't get. It's like their voice isn't heard. So I think we need multi-member districts and ranked choice voting. So
Okay.
you could at least, so if you had like, three candidates per district,
Hmm.
if there's like a right leaning group, they're at least going to have one person that can represent them. I also have this really wild idea, is that when you're in office, instead of like one vote in the legislature, whether it's federal or state, and they would take an amendment to do it, you have as many votes as voted for you. So, so it would encourage people to go out and vote or not vote.
Hmm.
So, like one candidate is like, well, I had 100,000 people vote for me and won, so I get 100. You have to add up. Well, does this bill pass? Well, it's not as simple as counting to 300. You still gotta. And
So, um, people are receptive to your candidacy.
the ones I've met are, yeah. I mean, it's hard getting the word out because it takes money.
Right.
And I'll get a lot of like, you're doing great, you're doing great. I really like what you're saying, but people don't like to pry open that checkbook. And I mean, no major corporations are giving me anything. No PACs are knocking down my door saying, "Hold it, you took this non-corruption pledge." Oh well, you know,
What about the Forward Party? Have they promised you any money?
they're helping. They're helping. They're doing more like in-kind stuff we've discussed.
How about the excuse me, the press? How has the press been to you?
Well, local press, yeah, they've reached out largely surveys. I haven't gotten much attention beyond that.
Okay,
So I need to actually, some of that's on me. I need to get more aggressive with them.
okay. But so your election is in November, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. So it'll be interesting to see how the Forward Party does in November. So if somebody wants to volunteer for your campaign, give you money, how could they contact you?
Okay, givensforhouse.com. That's GIV for victory,
All right.
ENS, givensforhouse.com. And you can also email me at Brandon at givensforhouse.com. And there's a
Okay.
donate button on the website.
Terrific. So, Brandon, thank you for being on Focus on the Candidates. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Brandon, I hope we talk again. As your campaign goes on, I'd like to do more shows with you on exactly how the Forward Party is helping you and if they're successful and you're successful.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, great. So thank you, Brandon. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a great day.
Bye bye.